Okay. I was about to be slightly worried. Didn't think he was going to pop up for a second. But I think we're good now. Yeah. Alright, XSplit. Okay. Okay, we are showing. Awesome. Sorry about that, guys. Really apologizing for a lot here. Number one, being extremely late, because wow, me and the alarm clock had a hellified disagreement today. So I definitely apologize for that. But we're gonna get started here shortly. Just need to get some sharing out the way. And then once we get that started, we'll go from there. I am just so sorry that we really got late. And I mean way late. So I definitely do apologize, folks. And I mean all the way apologize. Okay, so looks like we're going to be as good to go as ever. So let's get the shindig started, shall we? Today is day August 8th, 2020, and this is how the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before I do get started, even though we are going to be very limited on the language that we use, there may be some things that are definitely graphic, so viewer discretion is definitely advised. That being said, guys, well, there's no other way to explain it right now. The main story right now between millionaires, Republicans and Democrats, is pretty much arguing on how to help the American people. And let's say right now they're not getting very far.
Remains stuck in partisan divisions on Capitol Hill. Democrats want a massive stimulus keeping federal unemployment help at $600 a week. Republicans want a much smaller package. The president says if there is no deal, he's prepared to take executive action as soon as today. Weijia Jiang reports from the White House.
We're very far apart. It's most unfortunate.
Congressional Democrats and White House negotiators emerged from a 3-hour-plus meeting on Capitol Hill with no deal.
I would say we're closer on a lot of issues. We're still very far apart on some very significant issues.
As some 30 million Americans wait in financial limbo for enhanced unemployment benefits to be restored, each side blamed the other.
We could have passed a very skinny deal that dealt with some of the most pressing issues.
When they said a skinny proposal, it was anorexic.
And Democratic leaders said executive action is not a solution. Economic recovery was billed as the theme of President Trump's trip to Ohio Thursday, where the state's governor did not greet him on the tarmac as planned.
Okay, and this goes to another story from there. So right now, for all those that don't know, the main problem between Democrats and Republicans, Democrats want the unemployment bonus, which is basically the $600 bonus that unemployment gets. They want that extended until the end of January. Republicans, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, but then again, I should not be surprised, Republicans are wanting to reduce the $600 benefit because they believe that this would basically be an incentive for people not to work. Yes, Republicans would rather have you working in very unsavory conditions with COVID-19 than to give you the money to basically keep yourself safe and keep your family safe, and at the same time keep bills paid and a roof over your head. I wish I can make this up about how as clear as day that argument really is. That being said, guys, of course, Dorito in them, I like to say Dorito in them. Dorito in them just at this point cannot sit there. I mean, here's the thing that really makes no sense. The unemployment bonus was working. Now, again, the argument has been more people make more money off unemployment than at their job. Again, folks, this is not an argument about unemployment. That is a whole nother argument about job income. And trust me, we can go down that route because unemployment benefits haven't changed since 2000. I apologize. The minimum wage hasn't changed since 2009. It is still under $8 in 2020, when realistically, if minimum wage follows rate of production, actually minimum wage right now should really be $20.94. That's just being honest. It should be $20.94 when you look at the rate of production with minimum wage. It is still $7.25. Been that way since 2009. So if people want to argue if people want to argue the simple fact matter that I make more money off unemployment than I would at my job, then the argument isn't unemployment. The argument is your job and what they get away with, because they're perfectly happy with you working yourself to death for as little as humanly possible, because in the end they get the bigger paycheck. So, for all those that are wondering, of course, with the negotiations not working out well, Dorito decided that he's going to do a few things.
Administration continues to work in good faith to reach an agreement with Democrats in Congress that will extend unemployment benefits, provide protections against evictions. A terrible thing happens with evictions, not fair. It wasn't their fault that we were infected with this disease from China, and get relief to American families. Yet tragically, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer continue to insist on radical left-wing policies that have nothing to do with the China virus, nothing to do with it at all. So you have a virus that comes in, and you have people in Congress that don't want to help our people. If Democrats continue to hold this critical relief hostage, I will act under my authority as president to get Americans the relief they need. And what we're talking about is deferring the payroll tax for a period of months till the end of the year, and I can extend it at a certain period. Hopefully I will be here to do the job. We're going to do the job. We've been doing a job like nobody could. Nobody would, actually. And so we're going to have the payroll tax go till the end of the year, and it'll be retroactive to July 1st. So we're going to go back to July 1st. And
Okay, so let's just stop Dorito right there for a second, because again, this was after the negotiations were failed, in which Dorito had sat there and said that he's going to use executive orders to go ahead and push the enhanced benefits, which is $600 check. He's inciting that till January. He's also going to push through his payroll tax. Now, for all those that have been watching and wondering what the payroll tax is, it's basically a gift for corporations. Small businesses really don't benefit from payroll taxes. Corporations do. Simply put, because they say that, and again, this is Reaganomics. For those that don't know, Reaganomics is pretty much support the rich and starve the poor, because the whole thing is that it goes back to trickle down, which is basically saying that if you feed the top part of the economy, they get so full that it has to trickle down to other places. The problem is the cup doesn't have a bottom. So with payroll tax works the same way. Say, for instance, you're a corporation that has over 100,000 employees. Your payroll tax, let's just say throughout the year, you're paying close to about $75,000 or more on payroll tax for all your employees. That's your payroll tax. If the payroll tax was removed, that means that you're saving $75,000 from not having to pay a tax on the employees. You keep that in your pocket. Now, realistically, in a normal world, you would think that payroll tax could be saved by businesses to incite them to pay their employees more. That's bullshit, because nothing on the payroll tax says that a business has to pay what they've saved to their employees. That's why the payroll tax is literally cited as something that won't work, because that does not give businesses a reason to pay their employees more. So again, with the whole idea of them pushing the payroll tax, makes no sense, but that was a conservative talking point. That's Doritos' talking point. So of course he's going to put in a whole bunch of executive orders. Some I don't get, just because the fact of the matter is, at any time he could have put an executive order, sit there and say, throughout this argument, before the end of the extension, he could have went ahead and extended unemployment again. He didn't have to wait until the deal expired. He didn't have to do the payroll tax. He just wanted to do that anyway because he got what he wanted. And at the same time, another stupid thing was extending protections for those who had Obamacare insurance and was worried about them not being covered for pre-existing conditions. Yes, he said it. Not even thinking about the simple fact of the matter is Obamacare and the ACA, which is the mandate, already has in place that pre-existing conditions are covered. But yet you're going to do an executive order or something that's already been made into law. Shows how much he's in tune with. Shows how much he's in tune with the rest of us. But again, the thing that I just don't get, as far as from a conservative talking conservatives, because I've said this before, I understand what the Democrats are doing, but the Democrats on the low end stick when there's a Republican Senate and the personal wall is in Mitch McConnell, who has already sat there and said he would support, he would actually support a $600 benefit increase if the president agreed with it. And the president agreed with it, and Mitch McConnell silent. Again, Kentucky's. Do us a big favor this year, Kentucky. You have the power. But unfortunately, as these two parties, and basically I say two millionaire parties, because have you ever met such a thing as a broke politician? Unfortunately, as this is going on, the real life effect of how benefits, when they're lost, have an effect on people, leads people to drive in situations like this.
Of new jobless claims shows the devastating burden being shouldered by American workers. Nearly 1.2 million Americans applied for unemployment benefits last week. That's the 20th straight week with claims crossing a million. Tonight, CBS's Mark Strassman hears from two out-of-work Americans, one who lost that $600 weekly unemployment check and another who's been lost in the system.
I'm lost. And I'm scared.
Gwen Jeter supervised an Atlanta bakery's kitchen. She was furloughed in mid-March. In late May, all her unemployment benefits abruptly stopped. No explanation. She and her two sons have gone 10 weeks with zero income.
How much money do you have now?
$3.53 in my bank.
What's the scariest part?
Being homeless. I've been there with my 3 children before, sleeping in our car. I don't want to do that again.
For more than 25 million jobless Americans, Washington's extra $600 a week was a financial lifeline. Without it, Sandy Villarto, a furloughed housekeeper, grows desperate.
Sometimes I can't even go to sleep at night thinking, like, what am I going to do tomorrow or what am I going to do next week?
This Arizona family's only income is her unemployment benefits.
I don't know how I'm going to survive on $214 a week.
Georgia promised to review Jeter's unemployment case on September 10th. That's in 5 weeks.
It feels like you're being punished. And you're like, okay, unemployment, where are you?
We contacted Georgia unemployment officials. They agreed to fast-track the case of a woman trying to stretch $3.53. Mark Strassman, CBS News.
And that's what people are dealing with. That is exactly where, and I mean, I understand those are two stories in a very small pot, but that's what people are dealing with. Those are the decisions that are honestly being made that folks have to make on a daily basis. Lose sleep, stress, things of that nature. And if this shines a light, if anything, this shines a light on how fragile our economy truly is. This actually shines a light on how terrible the unemployment system is. I mean, we all pay into the system, and yet this is how it works, and yet people are waiting weeks. There are still people, especially in Tennessee, there are still people in Tennessee still waiting for their first unemployment check, and it's been months. How in the blue, I'm sorry, but how in the blue hell can we not sit there and say that things need to change? Especially in this day and age, that we should be getting more help. If corporations, if Wall Street, if the airline industry, and restaurants, the restaurant and the services industry is about to get $120 billion lifeline from Congress. Congress can write everybody else a blank check, but when it comes to the American people, they choose to screw us. And I'm not saying Republican or Democrat, although honestly at this point it's looking like more Republican than anything else that's being the holdup. But I have been saying this since this pandemic happened. It is amazing to me how other countries have sat there and made sure to do monthly payments to their constituents with no problem. Canada figured it out in less than 3 weeks. We as Americans, if some of us have only gotten a $1,200 check, and that $1,200 check was supposed to do what? Probably pay one bill, probably pay the rent, but then again, that check is now what, 3 months old? And now at the same time, they're preparing to do another stimulus package in which that you're going to get possibly another check of $1,200. Again, it makes no sense that how did Canada figure out to pay their people $2,000 a month until this is over? Every other country out there, Germany, Russia, Australia, those people that are affected in the heaviest areas are now getting monthly payments from the government to get by. At the same time, they also didn't mention about the moratorium on evictions. Evictions, like I said, even here in Tennessee, Tennessee has a fast food expedient process when it comes to evictions, and without that protection in place, people are getting forced out. People are not getting assistance because at this point they're being moved out. And trust me, all of this is being remembered come election year. This is an election year. So again, until they actually have protections in place, which they should have beforehand, people are going to remember. And I hope this incites, and as much as I hope people recover, I hope this incites people to vote. Because now you see why voting matters. You see why the people in place you put in place matter. And again, I'm not saying that Democrats have all the answers. I've never said I was Democrat or Republican, even though I vote Democratic. I just know that I cannot vote conservative because they have nobody's interest in mind unless you're a corporation. But switching gears here for a little bit, guys. Schools did actually start in some areas, and beyond my shock, some parents have sent their children to school. I know if I had children, and with this COVID-19 being out here, my child would not be in school. I'm sorry. There's no evidence. The CDC may have given guidelines on how schools can operate, but with cases across the U.S., if we can't even open a city, why the hell are we trying to open up schools? I mean, some schools have got it right. They've actually done remote learning. Everybody stays at home. Everybody's still learning via the web. It's only because I said this so many times in so many other podcasts. We should be taking advantage of technology that's out there. We should be taking advantage of remote learning, of virtual classes, of just being able to socially distance, but still being close enough to where things can be taught. It can be done. But unfortunately, some schools, because they took Doritos marching orders, have decided to open. And this story, which I still think is crazy, only because a single student wanted to show something that was really objectionably horrible. Hoping it plays.
The third largest system in the nation is going all virtual for all public schools in the Windy City starting in the fall. This as new fallout over that alarming video of students packing a school hallway mini without masks. And now the mother of the student who recorded that video says her child has been suspended. Janae Norman joins us now with more. Janae, good morning to you.
Hey, TJ, good morning. Yeah, you've seen those images of students essentially shoulder to shoulder in packed hallways where social distancing didn't even really appear possible. It was alarming for many who saw them. The school principal saying that school leaders are doing their best, but now warning students against posting anything that paints the school in a negative light.
More fallout this morning over this viral photo of a hallway packed with students, many not wearing masks. The mother of the student who recorded this video inside North Paulding High School during class change says the young whistleblower has been suspended for sharing the images online.
Anything that's going on social media that is negative in our light.
And then this stern warning from the school's principal over the PA shared online by one of his students.
There will be consequences for those students or anyone who sends out those pictures, so please be careful.
In the same district at Abney Elementary School, nurse Amy Westmoreland resigning, saying it's just not safe enough to return to school.
Part of my job as a nurse is to heal the sick, not to make them sick. And I felt that given my role, I've been in a lot of situations where I could infect children and other adults in the building.
The same battle playing out across the hard-hit Sun Belt. One Texas doctor sounding the alarm, writing, "America is out of its mind, thinking we're even remotely prepared for school this fall." His state is set to return children to schools despite averaging more than 8,000 new cases and 230 deaths per day last week, with testing capacity still an issue.
If you're a student in a public school, let's say on the east side of town here in Austin, and you're having symptoms and you need to get in, there's no guarantee that you can even get in to get tested that day.
And in Cherokee County, Georgia, at least 4 schools that started in-person classes on Monday have had positive COVID-19 cases. With contact tracing, students and staff impacted are now back out of school, required to quarantine.
And again, I cannot say this enough. How in the blue hell was it a good idea? I've been saying this. I have been saying this. I don't mean to be the boy who cried wolf, but I'm crowing right now. It was never a good idea because, again, if Nashville can't even get their downtown bars to open up properly, what makes you think that schools are going to do the same? And of course, what they didn't say in the story, but as they found out, the student suspension was actually reversed. So they were able to, of course, but then the parent of the child who recorded this is not allowing her child to go back to school because of the record cases of COVID-19 that have happened at that school, but other schools, even here in Tennessee. Schools are now being quarantined because teachers and students are now testing positive for COVID-19. Again, this was not a good idea. Yes, education is important. Yes, education is what our children need, but we have to do it in a safe environment. It cannot be done in schools. And all those who thought it can be done really are the same ones that should be held to blame because now their students are going to be sick, and now those same students have came in contact with those who are COVID-19 positive, and this is unfortunately how a virus infects others. One person can infect 100 people if they come in contact with them, and that's the gross misunderstanding of how this virus works. That's why I'm sitting there saying, above all else, guys, like I said before, if I had a child, they wouldn't go to school. They would not go to school. I would find other avenues. I mean, there's always homeschooling. There's always private tutors. There's always virtual learning. But I just know from my simple fact of the matter, my children right now would not be in school. I cannot take that risk. And you see now how easy it is for them to infect. I mean, a nurse has resigned. I want to know who that principal was. That principal should be fired, honestly, because it's like, well, we can't have anything that paints us in a negative light. Okay, you can go. That sounds like PR control than anything else. That doesn't sound like somebody protecting students. It sounds like somebody's protecting the school from a very bad decision. Because let's be honest, educators across the U.S. are being forced to either risk their lives and teach children or resign or quit. And trust me, educators deserve a way lot more, and I guarantee they're not getting paid anymore. I mean, it's just like your essential workers. Those who work in hospitals aren't getting paid more. I don't see doctors or nurses staff, doctors' aides, environmental services people, the ones that actually risk their lives the most because they are considered in the hot zone for this mess. They're not getting paid more. So imagine you being an educator trying to figure out social distancing in a class of 50 kids or more, and you're trying your hardest not in the world to get sick, but you're still not getting paid as much. You're not getting paid any more for the job that you do. It is literally crazy. That's why I said I don't blame educators. If the Tennessee Board of Teachers decided tomorrow that they were not going to be teaching tomorrow, I support it. Because at the same time, what's more important, education or your health? Because coronavirus's death toll in the U.S. is now over 300,000. That's not a laughing matter. That's not a small number to scoff at, because the death rate is that freaking high. Again, it's just a terrible idea. But moving right along, guys, there is some news in the case of Breonna Taylor. For all those who don't know about Breonna Taylor, the woman that was actually killed in Kentucky by officers who forcefully entered the woman's apartment under a no-knock warrant and shot and killed her. So everybody's wondering at this point, including the mayor of Louisville, why the investigation is taking so long. The AG had sat there and said that the investigation remains ongoing, and we currently await testing analysis from federal partners, including a ballistics test from the FBI crime lab. The FBI confirmed that it collected a significant amount of ballistic evidence after searching Taylor's home in June. Again, here's the problem. Here's the problem I have with this. Because everybody has been asking what is taking so long, and it just amazes me. And I'm gonna go ahead and say it. When it comes to police-involved shootings, they seem to have such a slow response when the shooter's an officer, but they have such a faster response when the shooter is not a law enforcement officer. Now, excuse me, it is plain as day. It is plain as day right now that the officers involved that killed Breonna Taylor should honestly not only lose their jobs, but at the same time, they should be reprimanded, and it should be, if anything, they should be given manslaughter. If anything, you can prove manslaughter in what they did. It would be harder. I admit it would be harder to prove murder. It would be. Even a second degree murder would be hard to prove. But manslaughter is definitely a lot easier to prove. But either way, they should be facing charges. It should not be an excuse of waiting on ballistics tests to prove what? That the officers killed Taylor? I mean, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Red carpet? Because that's what it seems like to me. But again, like I said, with these stories, I make it a point to keep up with the Ahmaud Arbery's and the Breonna Taylors, because these stories, and also with George Floyd, because these stories do have merit, and at the same time, they still need to be followed. Regardless of how little bit of information about that still comes out there, we're still going to report it. Let's see what you guys said. Alex. I'm so glad my mom retired from teaching a couple years ago. They called her to ask if she was going to substitute teacher for this year, and she laughed at him. Alex, I'm surprised mom didn't cuss him out. She said she laughed at him. I'm surprised she didn't cuss him out, really. Hey, Miss Tanya, shame they should be punishing, and they're punishing people that are concerned. Yes, they are. Kelly, that check is gone. Yeah, that stimulus check has always been gone. But this goes back, like I said, speaking of schools, things of that nature, it just goes back to the whole entire mask debate. And this what kills me about the mask debate is that, simply put, there are still people out there that will sit there and cite personal freedom over the fact that they don't need to wear a mask. They need to watch this.
When you're outside and not have the capability of maintaining distance, you should wear a mask at all times.
Just wear the darn mask. There's not a lot of tools left in the kit for us.
I don't think we should be required to wear one because, it's a free country.
COVID has fundamentally changed a lot of things about how we live. At the beginning, I think there was a lot of confusion. Nobody had ever really tested masks in a pandemic setting. But now that we're in this real world experiment, there's a much stronger evidence that's come out in real time and in real life.
There was little to no social distancing at his back-to-back celebrations this weekend.
I am not even one iota concerned about getting the coronavirus.
This is something that everybody should take seriously. It's everybody's right to be safe.
If I can convince one person to wear a mask and not spread it to somebody else, it will cause someone else to lose their dad.
It's nothing about identifying as a Democrat or Republican. Virus doesn't care. I think it's empowered people who react very strongly against being told what to do, even if it's in their best interests. And that's something that's pretty unique, I think, to the American society. It does not work well in a pandemic when everybody needs to work together in the same direction.
President Trump wearing a mask in public for the first time at Walter Reed Medical Center, visiting COVID first responders and wounded soldiers.
The government is there to protect our rights. They're not there to tell us how to live our life and how to be healthy, basically.
If we could get everybody to wear a mask right now, I really do think over the next 4, 6, 8 weeks, we could bring this epidemic under control.
We have all the tools. We're just too busy fighting each other. That's when COVID's just sweeping on by.
Utah protesters battling over masks.
I think it's totally wrong. I think it's a political hoax.
And while we all agree that wearing a mask is effective,
I'm confident that Georgians don't need a mandate to do the right thing.
You can't trust people to do the right thing all the time. That's why I don't think you can trust people to wear seatbelts. There's fines and penalties for not taking basic responsibility. Masks are integral to protecting other people. I think it's even more important to mandate those things.
And now major retailers like Target, CVS, and Walgreens are joining Walmart, Kroger's, and Kohl's in requiring customers to wear face masks in all their stores.
It will probably, unfortunately, get worse before it gets better. Whether you like the mask or not, they have an impact.
This is the way, the cheapest, the most effective way for us to open up our businesses.
I think corporate America has woken up and recognized that this is a huge threat to their livelihoods. It's not a choice between reopening or controlling the epidemic. These are the same things.
Despite the surge in cases, the CDC laying out its new guidelines for schools nationwide, recommending schools keep kids in pods, use social distancing, and recommends students and staff wear face coverings.
More than 4.2 million Americans have tested positive.
And we begin tonight with that grim new milestone, the death toll in this country now topping 150,000 from the coronavirus.
Masks are probably the single most important non-pharmaceutical intervention that we have as societies reopen.
Okay, and also I need to apologize, guys, about the death rate. I did get that wrong. It was not 300,000. Currently, the death rate for coronaviruses in the U.S. is a little over 152,000. So I need to apologize for that. I actually got that fact wrong. But again, with that video, that just goes to show you guys, masks are needed because I say this at the end of every, so far I've said this at the end of every podcast I've said, masks are effective. We try the other way. You know, I've heard all the time, oh, you don't need to wear a mask. Oh, I don't need that. It's my right. It's my right as an American. I don't need to wear a mask. I don't need to do this. Well, then I hope you don't correct. I hope you don't get the coronavirus, and I hope you're not a carrier for it. Because much like systemic racism, you're not going to be affected by it until it hits close to home. And again, it makes no sense at this point that, of course, businesses have finally adopted it. Now, why some states have mandated face masks. I'm sorry, not face masks. Some mandated wearing a mask when you go out. Unfortunately, my home state of Tennessee has not done that. Because Bill Lee is pretty much a coward and a spineless conservative. Because there has been a point to where even local hospitals, like the director of Maryland Hospital, has sat there and informed Mr. Lee that the simple fact of the matter is masks need to be mandated. You want to cut down on cases, masks help. At the same time, we shouldn't be surprised because every time Nashville tries to reopen, let's just be honest, if you've seen downtown Broadway on a Saturday night, with everybody standing shoulder to shoulder, nobody wearing a mask, no social distancing, it is amazing to me the coronavirus cases in Tennessee aren't higher. But yes, masks work, masks help. And I've been saying this for the longest time. Masks reduce the risk of transmission vectors. Well, masks don't prevent coronaviruses. No, they reduce it. And I can't tell you the many scientific experiments that have shown what happens when people wear masks. I'm sorry, there's so many avenues you can go. The most simplest one will be Bill Nye. Bill Nye's experiment on why masks are needed is probably the most simplest you can get. But the point of the entire matter is masks help. Along with social distancing, along with going out whenever you need to. If you're feeling sick, you need to stay home. At the same time, if you absolutely have to go out, wear a mask. My thing is, if you can wear a Halloween mask, you can wear a mask 2 hours. If you can, dress up with a hood or something over your head, you can wear a mask. Some people have gotten creative. There's actually now an industry for face masks. Who knew there would be an industry that was born overnight? Because the usual place where people usually get their N95 masks or respirators, things of that nature, especially respirators, those things that painters wear, those are just as effective. I've seen people walk out with those. It's the whole idea that there's now a whole new industry. And because there is this industry, and I'm, kind of semi-thankful for that, there's no reason why you can't wear a mask. I have several. I have several just in case. I mean, I even have a bag of disposable ones in my car just in the event that, hey, I forgot my Old Faithful, but you know what? Emergency one right here. I'm covered. So again, it just makes no sense at this point why you don't have a mask, unless you just simply don't care. And like I said, if you simply don't care, then I hope you never have to experience what so many people in this day and age have experienced with coronavirus. It's just that unfortunately, those who do experience and have lost loved ones to it, will be the first ones to sit there and tell you, wear a damn mask. That fucking simple. But speaking of other things that are going, but speaking of other things are simple, there's a day that I never thought that a black person would actually try to take down the NRA. Well, this black person is Attorney General.
The Rifle Association is under fire, facing a sweeping lawsuit from New York's Attorney General.
My office filed a lawsuit against the National Rifle Association to dissolve the organization in its entirety for years of self-dealing and illegal conduct that violate New York's charities law and undermine its own mission.
Letitia James accuses 4 of the NRA's top leaders of diverting $64 million from the nonprofit over just 3 years to serve as their own personal piggy bank. The lawsuit claims Chief Executive Wayne LaPierre spent more than $500,000 on 8 trips to the Bahamas, more than $3 million on luxury car services, and that he obtained a post-employment contract valued at $17 million without the board's approval. In response, LaPierre and the NRA vowed to fight, saying this is an unconstitutional, premeditated attack aiming to dismantle and destroy the NRA. And we not only will not shrink from this fight, we will confront it and prevail. The group filed its own lawsuit and accused New York's Attorney General, a Democrat, of a power grab, trying to score political points ahead of the 2020 election.
How is this not political?
I don't think politics has anything to do with it. The NRA, its board, its officers, its directors have an obligation and a duty to its donors. And unfortunately, they failed in that responsibility. And as a result of that, the NRA is operating in a deficit.
The New York-based NRA, one of the nation's most powerful lobbying groups, spent more than $54 million during the 2016 election cycle. And last month, endorsed President Trump for a second term.
That's a very terrible thing that just happened. I think the NRA should move to Texas and lead a very good and beautiful life.
Again, this is a civil lawsuit that could take years to play out, but the Attorney General here in New York says that this is an ongoing investigation and that she would refer any evidence of criminal wrongdoing to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Savannah.
Now, I think that's actually pretty cool. Like I said this before about the NRA. The NRA has a lot of influence in Congress, mainly as far as their, excuse me, as far as, you know, the weapon laws, things of that nature. Keep in mind, the NRA has influenced a lot of the weapon laws we have in place. Needless to say, they were actually one of the ones that actually got the 76 law in place. And for a lot of people who don't know, the NRA at the time was actually influential because this one group called the Black Panthers, who literally followed the laws as far as arming themselves. And the LAPD, well, pretty much not the chief of police, but those in the LAPD had written out to their senator, who was a conservative at the time, used them and the NRA to write the Firearms Act, in which semi-automatic weapons, fully automatic weapons like AK-47s, things of that nature, which at one point used to be legal in the U.S., now were illegal, simply put, because they were scared of a minority group actually owning the same weapons as the LAPD. And the funny part about that little history gem, who was at the forefront of that? The NRA. The NRA has actually been able to influence, guide, and simply put in laws that benefit them. No different than Wall Street actually writing the very same laws that Congress put in place to protect and enhance themselves. Why is this relevant? This is relevant just because the simple fact of the matter is the NRA needs to go. I mean, for a non-profit organization, they seem to have a lot of influence, and influence in a negative way. But then again, they've also given it conservative PACs. They've also sat there and been very silent when minority people, especially minority gun owners who have done everything, who have done everything correctly, they have been obviously silent. Because in the case of Philando Castile, where he was a legal gun-owning black man, and he was killed, and the NRA was silent. And I mean, they've been silent on many other cases when they sat there and said, well, every time a child, like I said, with school shootings, the NRA spoke up. Oh, well, this is just an attack on this is an attack on our gun laws. This is an attack on just us owning firearms. And this just means they're just going to come to get our guns. You've probably heard that more times than any. The NRA at this point is honestly a cesspool that needs to be dissolved. Now, as I heard the case, it is a civil case, which means that yes, they can be heavily fined to the point to where they will dissolve themselves. But it sounds like there's a lot more going on in that actual world of nonprofit, especially with embezzling, and that could lead to more felonious charges if suggested by the Manhattan DA. So we hope. I'll be honest with you, the NRA is useless, so I hope they go. What do you guys say? Go girl. What do you say, Vaughn? I don't truly, but I'm not taking a chance. Oh, mask on. Oh, okay, that's what you're saying. Move to Texas. Yeah, I thought that was a little odd, too, that Dorito would talk about, well, they need to move to Texas. But let's be honest. Have you seen Texas? Texas is probably the most gun-friendly state this side of next to Tennessee. And trust me, we're close. I just don't get the whole thing of them moving to Texas to say they have a strong base there, I guess. But beyond that, I don't see the point. But moving right along, guys, the other story I wanted to talk about was honestly, I knew about this just from a historical standpoint, but again, this is one of those things that we need to be surprised about when it comes to African American women and the medical practices, because for the simple fact of the matter is, I used to question why my mom and other black women like her were very adamant when it comes to especially giving birth in a hospital or seeking medical assistance in a hospital. And the simple fact of the matter is, they were very adamant that they be viewed and treated properly. And this story that I'm about to play actually hits a lot more close to home than anything else.
Nation's maternity wards. African American mothers dying at a higher rate than any other racial or ethnic group from childbirth related complications. Families affected by this tragedy share their stories on the day their lives changed forever. Janae Norman has this report.
What was supposed to be the start of a new life turned out to be the end of another. 26-year-old Amber Rose Isaac was preparing to give birth at the height of the coronavirus pandemic in New York City in April, when everything changed for her partner Bruce.
And I just remember staring and, looking at her face and seeing how scared she was, panicking a bit. So I'm telling her, yeah, we're going home. This is what we prepared for. This is what we were ready for. It's time. And she looked at me and said, yes, all three of us are going home. And that was the last time I seen Amber.
Amber posted on Twitter about, quote, dealing with incompetent doctors. She died 4 days later. Bruce says Amber tried advocating for herself, but doctors just wouldn't listen.
When she voiced her concerns to her OB, she was letting her know, she's not feeling right. She's feeling a lot of discomfort. She's having shortness of breath. And her OB didn't really understand. She was like, oh, well, there are other women who are working while they're pregnant. So that right there just told me she didn't really care about Amber.
In a statement, the hospital spokesperson saying 94% of our deliveries are minority mothers, and Montefiore's maternal mortality rate of 0.01% is lower than both New York City and national averages, adding any maternal death is a tragedy. Amber's story is not uncommon. July 2nd, 26-year-old Sha'Asia Washington died during an emergency C-section. And July 27th, Yolanda Kadima, a doula and mom of 7, died giving birth to twins, also during an emergency C-section. Experts like Professor Deirdre Cooper Owens, who's written about how race and gender impacted American gynecology, say the struggles these women face throughout their pregnancies and childbirth all come down to racism.
You see that class and status tend to matter. The higher up you go, right, the kind of better protected you are. that doesn't exist for Black women because we're all experiencing racism in the same way. So when I walk into the office, nobody knows if I'm married or have a PhD or what my income is. The assumption is I might be lying, maybe I'm promiscuous, maybe I don't eat well. I should still be given fair treatment and equitable treatment by my doctor.
My first pregnancy, my birthing experience was pretty traumatic.
And then he actually punctured my spinal cord. I was temporarily paralyzed.
We were so excited about bringing Jason to this world, and then the last 2 or 3 days of his birthing process was too tragic.
I was bullied and I was abused emotionally and physically, in the sense that consent was not asked for as often as it should have been.
It took me a while to find a provider that I trusted and that respected me.
We lost him due to what is known as HELP syndrome. We found out later on that his death could have been prevented, as well as the traumatic birthing experience that she experienced.
So many Black families with similar stories, and these experiences add to a mistrust between the Black community and the medical community, a relationship with a long, dark history dating back centuries.
Enslaved Black women were experimented on, particularly during the 19th century, so a little bit in the 18th century, but largely in the 19th century as obstetrics and gynecology became more formal and accepted branches of medicine. Marion Sims, known as the father of American gynecology, pioneers the surgery to correct this obstetrical fistula condition. People didn't know that he experimented on enslaved women. They didn't know that 2.5 years into his experimental trial, when his white medical assistants quit, he trained these enslaved women to serve as nurses. They were still his patients. They were still his slaves that he either owned or leased, and they still served as surgical assistants. So that part of the story was left out.
The success of James Marion Sims earned him the nickname of the father of modern gynecology. But his legacy is marred by the fact he earned it on the backs of Black slaves through non-consensual human experimentation without anesthesia. Now, doctors like Jennifer Lincoln, also an OBGYN, are fighting against present-day health disparities.
To this day, Black people are less likely to get the same treatment in terms of pain medication. They're more likely to wait longer in the emergency room. They're less likely to be taken seriously. It's a holdover from the days of slavery. And in my field, this plays a huge role in the Black maternal and morbidity crisis. The call to action. Doctors, nurses, anybody in the medical field, check your implicit bias.
Staggering statistics show Black women in America die during childbirth nearly 3 times more than white women, making the United States one of the most dangerous developed countries in the world for Black women to give birth. And doctors say the issue for mothers extends through pregnancy and postpartum, and also impact Black babies, who are more than twice as likely to die than white babies.
So higher rates of complications related to childbirth and pregnancy as well. It's huge, and it's something that in a population, childbearing women in general are young, healthy women. And then these are not women who should be suffering these extreme complications or be dying, especially in a developed country.
So what do you think can be done for medical professionals already out there to address this?
I think that in reading and listening and understanding why there is fear and distrust of the medical system for certain racial groups, and it's not a personal thing, but it's a whole generational societal thing. I still have to stop myself every time I'm caring for somebody who looks different than me, and I always check. And I say, am I delivering the same level of care here?
These important self-assessments could literally mean the difference between life and death for patients like Charles Johnson's wife, Kira. She died unexpectedly after the birth of their second son in 2016, and Charles says her death was 100% preventable.
For what was supposed to be a routine scheduled C-section at our doctor's recommendation, and on what we expected to be the happiest day of our lives, and really walked into an absolute nightmare. The thing that's so clear to me is that Kira just wasn't seen and valued as human. She wasn't seen in the same way, with the same compassion and the same empathy that the people that were responsible for her life would have seen their own daughters or their own wives or their own sisters.
there's no reason that Kira should not be here today.
Charles says for him and his two sons, the void left by Kira's death can never be filled.
And we talk about mommy all the time. And so I made the decision very early on that I never wanted the topic of Kira to ever be taboo or to be off limits. We do our best to remain positive and to celebrate her, but my brother says it best, it's like there will always be an empty seat at the table.
But he's using tragedy as fuel to effect change, starting 4 Moms for Kira, an advocacy group aiming to change laws and prevent negligence from ripping apart any more families. As for Bruce, he's grappling with the reality of what should have been the start of his family ending tragically in the beginning of his son living a life without his mother.
Now, all I can think about is, Elias growing up without his mother and how he's going to feel when, he's in school and they're doing Mother's Day activities and, making Mother's Day cards. And Elias is not going to have that luxury. And it kills me. And it kills me that, whenever we go out to parks, we're going to see full family playing together and we're not going to have that.
Janae Norman, ABC News.
Now, for the simple fact of the matter, guys, that is a story that honestly is rooted in the simple fact of just there is a bias about, especially when it comes to black women in hospital care. And I knew some things about it, but I didn't know the full scale about it, especially the history behind it, where, gynecology does have a dark history. Because at one point it was considered that African American women they believed that African American women did not feel pain and that there was no reason to give anesthesia or things of that nature. And it is a very, 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 very dark history. And even now, the roots of that history are still affecting women when they go to the hospital. So I don't, if my mother, my sister, my girlfriend, if they all share voices or concerns about going to see their doctors now, we're hearing that story and just going back and doing my own research, I get it. I truly do. There is a systematic bias in care, and it definitely does need to be addressed. So I just want to bring that story to light, just because the fact of the matter is women are affected by this, and that not to sound like one of my favorite rappers, Common, but black women do need to be more. We do need to protect them. We do need to hear them out more. We definitely need to do what we can to remove those barriers, because let's be honest, nothing is more scary. There's nothing more scary about a black woman's health when you realize you're not getting the same help as a white woman or anybody else. That is beyond fucked up. But moving right along, guys. Crap, what I was gonna say next before I got distracted. That whole story took me to a place I can't lie. I felt that. Moving right along, guys. We do have a couple more stories before we get to our feel good segment. Well, the first we're gonna talk about is good old Joe. I mean by Joe, I mean old man Biden, who looks more like Clint Eastwood every day he gets, is getting closer to his VP list, and I'm concerned.
Headline tonight in the race for the White House, Joe Biden says he'll no longer travel to Milwaukee for the Democratic convention due to concerns about the coronavirus. Instead, he plans to deliver his nomination speech in his home state of Delaware. But before he accepts his nomination, he still has to choose his running mate. So who are the top contenders in the Veep Stakes? Our Mary Bruce is tracking it all for us.
Tonight, Joe Biden is narrowing his selection.
I'm going to have a choice in the first week in August.
That VP announcement, we're told, is now likely to come next week. It will be an historic pick.
And I commit that I will, in fact, I'll pick a woman to be vice president.
For just the third time in history, a woman will be on the ticket. But it's the first time a candidate has said he will only consider women. The first time the list of potential contenders has looked like this. Nearly a dozen women are under consideration, including well-known former rivals like Senator Kamala Harris. She took on Biden in the primary, attacking him in the first debate for having worked with segregationist senators to oppose school busing programs in the 1970s.
And, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class
to integrate her public schools, and she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
But that appears to be water under the bridge. Last week, as Biden talked to reporters, a photographer catching a glimpse of his talking points. Right there at the top, notes about Harris, reading "Do not hold grudges." Also on the list, Senator Elizabeth Warren. She would bring a forceful economic message to the ticket. California Congresswoman Karen Bass is also a progressive, but less well known. The chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, she has a long legislative record, but not a deep relationship with Biden, though they have been spotted together recently. But with the new spotlight comes new scrutiny. Bass recently forced to defend her comments about Fidel Castro after his death.
The use of the term comandante en jefe, what I meant by that is that clearly in Florida, that is a term that is endearing to him. I didn't see it that way.
Ultimately, for Biden, it may come down to a gut feeling.
The most important thing in choosing the vice president is whether or not the person is simpatico with me in terms of where I want to take the country.
The former vice president has said he's looking for someone to do for him what he did for President Obama, something his wife Jill Biden echoed earlier this week.
And I think Joe is going to be looking for the woman who shares the same values that he shares. And I think that's what he had with Barack Obama.
But there are practical political considerations. The VP pick is a chance to try and unite the party, something Democracy for America CEO and ABC News contributor Yvette Simpson is watching closely.
As we think about how we're going to make sure that progressive values are showing up in this administration. So far, we've been a little disappointed by the agenda that's been put forward. Our hope is that by choosing a progressive VP, he's showing that he really does value our wing of the party, which we believe is, the future of the party.
Biden's team has been tight-lipped about the process, but the potential candidates have not, some openly campaigning for the job. It's something unique to this cycle.
Typically in a vice presidential process, it's like Fight Club. You don't say that it exists. You have to say, well, I'm not interested in the job, or I'm not thinking about it, I'm serving my constituents. In this case, you have many women who are outright saying, I'd be great on the ticket.
Then there's the elephant in the room, Biden's age.
For me, it has to be demonstrated that whomever I pick is two things. One, is capable of immediately being president, because I'm an old guy, okay? No, but I'm serious.
Biden would be the oldest sitting president if elected, putting added pressure on his decision with an announcement now just days away.
Okay, so Clint Eastwood, old man Biden. I keep on wanting this. Every time I see him, I'm like, dude, that is Clint Eastwood. That is like Clint Eastwood from Gran Torino. Get off my lawn. That guy. So, y'all, I struggle with this. I do. Biden is the obvious choice over Dorito for the next election. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts around that. I kind of wish it was Sanders, but, hey, get what you can. The VP pick at this point needs to be a person of color. That's just being honest. It needs to be a person of color. I don't think Kamala Harris is it. I have been saying this. Kamala Harris is a great prosecutor. I think she'll probably make a great attorney general. I'll give her that. She'll probably make a great attorney general if appointed. Vice president material, I don't think she's not. Reason being because she did not stand a lot on her issues during the presidential debates. During the presidential primary debates, where her record came into place as far as her as a prosecutor, because she did have a high rate of putting more minorities behind bars than anything else. Her housing idea really didn't take flight, just because it didn't really didn't look to help those that were under the $85,000 mark. At the same time, she was very, very flaccid over Medicaid for all, and just for disparaging the income equality. Much like Andrew Yang, which again, Andrew Yang was another guy who tried to do the American Income Equality Act, and it just didn't get anywhere. So Kamala Harris, I'm sorry, I don't see her as VP, even though she would make a great attorney general. Do not get me wrong. I think at this point, I was hoping for Stacey Abrams. For all those that don't remember her, she was actually running for governor in Georgia. It still is politically active. I think that she would be a fresh perspective. I think that she would challenge Biden, but at the same time, it would be a helpful balance in order to make sure that he's showing a strong progressive mark. Then I was hoping it'd be her. Karen Bass, yes, I can see that too, because I love that sit there and said that, well, she and Biden don't have a lot of history. Cool. That's helpful. Um, and at the same time, she has been the leader of the Congressional Black Caucus, which shows you she does have a lot of political experience. Do I think that she would make an awesome vice president? Yes, between her and Stacey Abrams. I could see that. Elizabeth Warren, again, I see her more as a president. Could she be a great vice president? Yes, because if she was vice president, that would make everybody on the financial side of the world very, very freaking nervous. Just because, keep in mind, she was at one point the watchdog for the CBC, which actually kept Wall Street in check when Wall Street was complaining how they were being hamstringed. So again, I can see her as a pick as well. But honestly, after old man Biden's most recent remark that I'm about to play, he might want to consider picking a woman of color.
President Trump intensifying his attacks against Joe Biden, again trying to paint Biden as a radical, describing him this way.
No religion, no anything. Hurt the Bible, hurt God. He's against God, he's against guns. He's against energy.
The Biden campaign wasted no time firing back, saying Joe Biden's faith is at the core of who he is. It's been a source of strength and comfort in times of extreme hardship. But Biden was also on defense today after he raised eyebrows during a video conference with Black and Hispanic journalists.
The answer is yes, I'm going to engage. Yes. Yes. And by the way, what you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things.
President Trump pouncing, tweeting, wow, Joe Biden just lost the entire African-American community. What a dumb thing to say. And lashing out before departing Washington.
I just watched the clip, and Joe Biden this morning totally disparaged and insulted the Black community. What he said is incredible, and I don't know what's going on with him.
The Biden campaign saying it's clear that Vice President Biden was referring to diversity of attitudes among Latinos from different Latin American countries. An advisor adding, of course Biden knows the Black community is not a monolith. African Americans are a critical constituency. President Trump only got single-digit support among the group in 2016, and the July NBC News Wall Street Journal poll shows Biden with 80% support among Black voters, and President Trump with 6%.
And Kristen joins us now. Kristen.
I don't know, Joe, because you can't sit there and say I was referring to the diversity of attitudes and idealistics among the African American community. oh, Joe. Yeah. With that being said, guys, this is why I say his VP pick better be a Black woman at this rate. Just because when you sit there and say that unlike the Latino communities, unlike the African American community, the Latino communities are more diverse. Ooh, Joe, have you ever considered probably bringing on somebody to vet your answers before you start talking? But again, things happen. I mean, I was also one of the ones on here that sat there and said when Biden was on it was on the Breakfast Club and Charmaine the God was interviewing him, and he sat there and said, look, he said when it comes down to the election, I remember what Biden said and I defended it. If it's coming down to election year and you defend and you want to pick Trump, you ain't Black. And I thought to myself, ooh, it almost reminds me. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of somebody who is cool with certain minorities, but you find that level of when you think you're cool enough to say something and it gets gets by the way you want it to, but it really doesn't. It's more like a train wreck. That's how it sounded with Biden. So, again, Biden, you might want to consider a woman of color for your VP right now because she's going to be vetting a lot of what you say before you say it. So, that being said, guys, that's really all our stories. We're going to move on to our feel good news segment. Like I say here on How the Frack We Got Here, we do cover a lot of things over the week that are kind of, not always happy, not always doom, not always positive. Yeah, I guess you could put it the way. I guess you could put it that way. But what we try to do on the weekends is, like I said, we try to leave you guys here on a good note, leaving feeling good about life, about humanity, and things of that nature. So I try to find funny stories, interesting stories, and just overall heartwarming stories. But like I said, trying to leave you out here on a good note. One of the ones I found, because I'm obsessed with lottery winners, if you haven't noticed by now in this podcast, where this one woman in North Carolina says that she won a $4 million scratch off because she had a lucky feeling. Mrs. Thompson told Lottery Carolina officials that she has days when she randomly feels lucky. She was having one of those days Saturday and decided to buy a lottery ticket. She bought a $20 scratch off ticket and won $4 million. And of course, extremely happy about it. And she sat there and said, "It's overwhelming." Well, no kidding. Of course, it's overwhelming. You just won $4 million. At this point, any money troubles that you had are pretty much out the window. But anyway, they sat there and said that she had the choice of $200,000 a year over 20 years or a lump sum of $2.4 million. She chose the lump sum and took home $1.6 million after taxes, according to Lottery. Now, that's one thing I've always wanted to really think about here from a math perspective. You win $4 million. You can get $200,000 a year for the next 20 years, or you can go ahead and just get $1.6 million. Now, I always wonder that. And you guys in the comments, feel free to say this as well. Which would you rather take? I mean, technically, yeah, $200,000 a year, 200 grand guaranteed a year for the next 20 years is pretty cool, but you're also paying taxes on it because of annuities. You still pay taxes on every year. Versus the lump sum, where it's 1.6, and you're already paying the taxes. Although after 2.4, 1.6, Uncle Sam is still taking a pretty decent amount of that lump sum. So I've always wondered that what would you actually take if that was given? I mean, like I said, of course, Powerball is Saturday, so if you haven't tried, go ahead and give it a shot. But even me, I still play the lottery every now and then, especially if it's getting a high number. We've all had that thought. We've all sat there and said what we would do if we won the lottery and things of that nature. I just always wonder when she sat there and said she just randomly feels lucky. Because I got a friend of mine who I swear has a horseshoe on his ass. When it comes to him being lucky, and I used to joke about him. I'm not gonna say his name, but I used to joke about him going out here and trying the lottery. But he always says that he tries it. But I think if he really did try it, he'd win because let's be honest. If money was not a worry for a lot of us, the stress level and how we would look. We would probably look like Angela Bassett right now, who probably bathes in bloods of virgins. Anyway, moving right along, guys. This other story I have here is if kids are definitely encouraging. They encourage us to be better people. They help us to be better people. Well, this 4-year-old decided that she's going to help her mom out in the best way possible, her losing weight.
But keep up the good work and don't ever stop, never ever stop running.
With quarantine, it's been so hard for me to work out. I mean, fitness has always been a part of our lives, but I guess sometimes when you're just so used to being in a house and you're used to like the same old routine, I just became unmotivated.
You got this, Mommy, and make sure you keep up the good work and never give up.
She's just like, "Mommy, are we working out today?" And I'm like, "No, I just don't feel motivated." And she's like, "Mommy, I'll motivate you." And I laugh because I'm like, she's only 4. She doesn't even know what a trainer is. And so I just took her at her word, and she's been taking it so serious.
Keep up the good work, and I love you, but keep up the good work. Because I want her to be motivated. That's what she can stay still and work out.
And when I looked and I saw all the reactions of everyone, I was just like speechless, you know? It feels good to have your kid on the internet and everybody has nothing but great things to say about her. And then for them to take it a step further and say that they feel inspired by us and by her and her words, that feels amazing. You think your kid is not listening or paying attention to you, they're always listening and they're always paying attention. You always have to pour these encouraging words, and they come out in moments you're not even expecting them to.
You got this, Mommy. And make sure you keep up the good work and never give up.
Now with the fitness entrepreneur and his growing...
There we go. Now I'm unmuted. All right, so the story that there, like I said, with the 4-year-old being very, very inspirational with her daughter. I mean, you got a 4-year-old like that, of course, you're going to work your ass out to shape. But like I said, kids actually, kids really do bring out the best in us, and I thought that was pretty cool to have that, to really push them on to do great. And also in this one, like the last story I got, guys, like I said, I always try to find stories about essential workers as well. This one is no different because, especially if this went back to these essential workers work in the hospital and they take pride in it, they actually call themselves cleaning warriors. So check this out.
Georgia's amazing essential workers who call themselves the Cleaning Warriors. We have Tina and Miss Lisa. They put their hearts and their souls into keeping their hospital safe and in turn all of us safe. And TJ, I know that you were able to give them a very special surprise.
You guys know I've loved doing this during pandemic, honoring a lot of the frontline workers, but these are two who are part of a staff that they admit they don't get a lot of love sometimes, and sometimes are overlooked in everything that's been going on in the pandemic, but they're absolutely essential. So we wanted to give them some love. Tyler Perry wanted to give them some love, and we might have a Medea cameo.
Tina Jones and Lisa Kelly are both healthcare workers in the Atlanta area. How y'all doing?
Hi, TJ. Nice to meet you.
And no, they're not doctors or nurses or ER techs. They are, however, still on the front lines. And without the work of these two and their crews, the system would crumble.
It's just not a one-man job. It's an everybody job.
Tina is a laundry team leader at Emory Decatur Hospital. It's her staff that handles and cleans 9,000 pounds of used, contaminated linens every day, including those from COVID patients.
It makes me feel special just to serve someone or make someone happy while they're sick, making a patient feel somewhat like they're at home.
And that's not all.
We do all the gowns that the doctors and the nurses wear on all the floors. I love my job. Everything I do comes from my heart.
Lisa Kelly, or Miss Lisa as they call her, is the Environmental Services Operations Manager at Emory Hillendale Hospital. And what exactly does her team do?
We clean every inch of the building. We're in the operating room, we're cleaning patient rooms, we're cleaning the outer areas, we're cleaning the corridors, restrooms, maintenance shop. Do you want me to go on and on and on? I can go on. We want to make sure that when our patients come in, they feel safe in this environment.
You all are providing a service that's absolutely critical. I mean, you all have to keep things clean, and this is a safety issue.
Working in this kind of environment with this COVID-19, it can be dangerous.
When the pandemic first hit and Lisa's team was scared about entering patient rooms, she led by example.
I said, we have to do this because this could be your mother or your father. I said, I will be the one to go in the room. And you guys stand on the outside and just hand me the items once I come to the door. Was I afraid? Yes, I was afraid. But I knew those patients needed to be in a clean and safe environment. Within 2 weeks, my staff was going into the rooms with no problems at all. So we're exposed just like the nurses and the doctors.
Sometimes we don't consider all that goes into helping those people be okay, helping those patients even feel better in that room.
Everyone is important, not just one set or one group of people. It takes all us together as one to get the job done.
We're fighting to keep this virus down.
As Miss Lisa calls them, they're a team of cleaning warriors. But these two Atlanta ladies wanted me to know as well, they're also members of Team Tyler.
Which one was the bigger Tyler Perry fan?
Probably me.
Both of you said me.
Yeah, me. I love Tyler Perry. I'm not gonna joke about it.
Yeah, I love Tyler Perry.
So we'll just share him. How about that, Tina?
We could do that. You get a half, I get a half.
You know we work good together.
What would you all do if Tyler Perry walked into your hospital?
Can I go first? What? Tyler Perry's on the screen, Tina. Hi.
Hey, Lisa, how you doing?
Wonderful.
How you doing, Tina?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. What y'all doing is so amazing, man. I just wanted to come on and say, hey, because so many people don't get the credit for the jobs that people don't necessarily see all the time. They just think things magically appear and they're clean. No, that your responsibility is huge, and I'm thankful for you.
They actually made an agreement that if they saw you, they would split you.
Look, two halves of me is no good for nobody. You might want to keep the whole.
A thank you from Tyler Perry is great. Another thank you from, well, you know who,
Hallelujah, hallelujah. Yes.
was also in order.
Well, I appreciate all y'all been doing for everybody. I appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it, what you've been doing.
I just wanted to make y'all smile, man. I wanted to come on here and make you smile and make your day and tell you what you're doing. Just keep doing it. It does not go unnoticed because there are those of us who really, really get it, and I'm one of those people, so I wanted to honor both of you.
Thank you so much. You need to come to Hillendale. We'll be waiting on you at the front door.
Let me tell you something. If it ain't by a video, I ain't finna come around nobody that ain't been tested 5,000 times. So I'm in the quarantine bubble. Yeah.
We waved goodbye to Tyler, and break time was over.
Oh, wow. You got to go back to work now. We have to save lives.
Yes, please.
Ooh, yeah, like I said, that was cool. Now, I have to give Tyler Perry credit. Just for simple fact of the matter, it's funny that, like I said, I'm at loss for words. Say what you want about Tyler Perry, but you gotta love the simple fact of the matter is just that, all he wants to do is make people smile. And again, I thought that was cool and really heartwarming, especially for ladies that, like I said, I'm not trying to get preachy, but this is the whole thing about essential workers. And the simple fact of the matter is these guys are not given enough credit for everything that they do. Especially in the same sense of just really braving the fact of going in and really facing the simple fact of COVID-19. But again, like I said, not trying to get preachy. I just love the fact that you just have people that are just really willing to go in and really do the job that a lot of people just simply won't do. But anyway, I'm not going to get preachy. We actually at the end of this. So I thank everybody that's watched. If you're watching the show, I really appreciate it. Some particulars before I do get out of here. There actually is a... if I can find words, that'd be great right now. There's a stream above my head. The stream above my head is for Cash App, so it actually just goes to helping making the shows better, things of that nature. Equipment, things like that. Didn't work out as far as the place I wanted to get. But like I said, minor setback because I do want to actually have a spot outside of my apartment. But that's fine. We're going to get there eventually. But also with that being said, guys, I am not the only cat that does have shows. I will ask that you look at my boy Vaughn, who's now watching this. Vaughn, hope all is well with you, dude. And also, I got to get your graphics from you. Which reminds me, Vaughn, I'm going to need a graphics with all your shows and whatnot. But since I don't have that, that's completely fine. I will say on Facebook, if you go to abigbza. That's his social media, and also abigbza. On all social medias, you'll be able to see all of his shows. Like the VST or the Intercast. The Intercast is a news podcast. That news could be music, video games, or trailers. As I've said before about Vaughn, he is the king of weird trailers. And I do mean king of them because he does find some ones that are really, truly out there, but at the same time worth looking at. Also, he has Random as Fuck, which I think he's starting to do every Tuesday now. Random as Fuck is full of ratchet stuff he sometimes ever tells into to take a break from life and have a chuckle. He usually puts the videos to a theme. Those videos can be funny. Those videos can be really some what the fuck sometimes, but above all else, always entertaining. And of course, he has Rhythm This, which is at this point, not to confer this with a buddy of mine, but to be determined at this point, just because of the simple fact of the matter, as Vaughn says, He wants Rhythmness to be more of a group environment because it's usually done with all of us. Because if you've seen Rhythmness, you'll know me and Vaughn, who I've known for well over 10 years. We always have differences in taste in musical attainment. You know, he likes his stuff. I usually don't like a lot of his stuff. But hey, different tastes actually lead to conversation. That's what Vaughn's all about. And aside from that, he does have funking around, which is, I wish he would go back to doing that because I've said before about Vaughn. Vaughn is very musically talented. He's actually, I call him a beat maker because he can make some interesting sounds, and I like the fact when he does go live, he shows his whole production, things of that nature. I kind of hope he gets back to doing that. But all of his shows can be found under his Facebook page as far as when they go live, things of that nature. Just look up A Big BZA dot, and you'll be able to go from there to see when he goes live. Now, my other brother from Denver Mother, Thomas Reed, I've come to find out as of the day before, he might be taking a short break from To Be Determined, but you can go to his Facebook at Thomas Reed and be able to see his To Be Determined podcast from previously. He is a fitness nut. He loves working out every chance that he gets, and at the same time, he wants to be able to inspire others to do the same. So, if you actually see Thomas Reed on Facebook, go ahead and give him a like, share, and repeat, or also go to 2TBD, which is his YouTube page, to see every podcast he's done so far. As for yours truly, I do have my own podcast. Every Tuesday night between 7 and 9 p.m. I do have the Burned Out podcast, which is my IT storytelling podcast. For all those who don't know, Thomas and Vaughn and others usually call me tech support because my main profession is in IT support. So I try to tell stories set to a theme from from my time. And sometimes they're kind of funny, sometimes they're kind of stupid, and if you feel insulted, I'm probably talking about you, but always entertaining. Of course, every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon is the How the Frack We Got Here podcast. Again, my apologies. I actually ran very, very, very late, and I apologize for that. Of course, later on tonight will be the Off Limits podcast between 7 and 9 p.m., and I have a very, very, it might be another solo edition, just because when I say solo, it might just be me and you, the audience. Very nice podcast topic tonight. I hope you all guys can tune in to watch that. And of course, on Sunday between 7 and 9 p.m. is my Get Bit podcast. It's my Blurred podcast, in which I cover video games, comic books, sci-fi, pop culture, things of that nature, from a blurred perspective, which is basically a black person nerd equals blurred. But all of my shows can be found under my Facebook page at William Buchanan, or on their own Facebook and YouTube pages. If you look up the Burnt Out Podcast, How the Frack We Got Here, the Off Limits Podcast, and Get Bit, that is GITBIT, you'll be able to see every podcast I've done thus far. So, with that being said, guys, if you like what I did, please let me know. If you didn't like what I did, please let me know. I am open to criticism always. I'm just trying to make this platform better for everybody to enjoy. And also, like I said, at the end of our How the Frack We Got Here, guys, this is all about informing you. This is not about changing your mind. This is not about persuading you. This is simply just trying to get you to understand that what we're doing here is what the old school news used to do. It wasn't about a narrative. It wasn't about a direction. We want to give you all the information for yourself and allow you to make up your own mind. That's how this works. Because an informed community can make a lot better decisions than an uninformed one, because an uninformed one got us Trump, and that's how the frack we got here. With that being said, guys, please be safe. COVID-19 is real. Wear a damn mask. Use social distancing. Only go out when you need to. And above all else, be kind. Be kind to each other, and we'll all get through this. It's just that freaking simple. Again, guys, thank you all for watching. And if you're watching this on the playback, go ahead and comment if it's live. And like I said, if you can't donate to the podcast, that's completely fine as well. Do me also another favor. Share this with other people. Share this with other people who are like-minded and just want to be informed without all the filler. That's where I come in. But thank you, guys. Please be safe. Thank an essential worker. Thank a doctor. Thank a nurse. Thank an environmental person. Thank the UPS. Thank FedEx, DHL, UPS. Thank truckers and everybody else that has to work in order to keep the lights on around this place. They deserve a lot more, and they should be getting a lot more. But that's a whole nother topic. So I thank you all guys for watching. I appreciate it all, and just we'll go from there and try to be safe. We'll get through it all. Peace.